You see this box? This entire moving box fully overflowing with fabric? This is my thrifted fabric stash. And the fact of the matter is, some of this has literally been sitting here for over 3 years. It went through multiple moves with me and it still didn't get used. That is truly unhinged of me, I think. Like, what is the point of hoarding all this fabric? This is dire. It calls for drastic measures. So I gave myself a challenge. I wanted to spend a week using up as much of this fabric stash as possible to make the cutest DIY projects possible. Let's get into the process. So obviously I had a lot of different fabrics and a lot of different projects in mind. So I had to get organized. And for that, I used Milanote. I am so happy Milanote is sponsoring this video because I genuinely don't know how I would have done this project without it. I probably would have used it whether they were the sponsor or not. Famously, I have been a user and fan of Milanote well before I ever worked with them, and it's free to try with no time limit, which basically means there are certain limitations to the free version, but you can use it however long you want. Okay, enough yapping, as they say. Let me just show you how I planned this. So my first step in my Operation Scrap Fabric Milanote board was to add little photo swatches of every fabric I had in my collection and just sort them. These are just photos I took of all my fabrics and uploaded in there. The fabrics I have more of are bigger, the ones I have less of that I can really only use for patchwork are smaller, and then next to each bigger swatch I gave myself a little spot to write notes on like the fiber content, the stretch, the feel of the fabric, and ideas on what I could use each of them for. They have templates you can start with if you want to, but you can also adjust everything very freely from there or not use a template at all. So I didn't have to make this work in any like pre-existing confines or formatting. I could just freely arrange it exactly how I wanted it, which makes things a lot easier to visualize and keep track of. It's very intuitive. Spoiler, I did not end up using every single one of these fabrics in this video, but I love that I have this whole catalog and setup now because I will definitely be referring back to this for future projects. While I was brainstorming ideas for all of my specific fabrics, I also started a little list off to the side of just general things that I would like to make or have in my wardrobe. I actually don't think I've talked about this yet on my channel, but at the start of the year, I was super inspired by Lena Norms to create a clothing DIY bingo board. I'll link the video where she talks about that in the description. I just think it's such a fun way to give myself projects, diversify my sewing skills, force me to get out of my box and to actually make things. However, I was seriously slacking on getting any of them done. So I also added a little photo of my DIY bingo board from my bullet journal into this Milanote board. And then I circled the ones I was potentially interested in completing through these projects. This is another spoiler, but I actually did end up accomplishing every single circled item on here, so stay tuned to see what they all are. Once I had all that information sorted, I moved on to my next step, which was visual inspiration. So I made an inspo subboard for photos of things other people had made that I found super exciting and inspiring and that looked like I could actually accomplish them with my skill set. Most of these images came from Pinterest. I could just drag and drop them in here, very easy. Then I was able to cluster them together into categories with little titles and adding some notes wherever I wanted them. So I could just like dump what was going on in my brain onto the page in an organized way. Again, did I make every single one of these ideas? No. But A, I hope to return to many of them, and B, sorting them like this also helped me prioritize which ones were actually going to be like the most practical and the most appropriate for my skill level and the fabrics I had and the amount of time that I had. So this organization of all these little clusters was also a process of narrowing down which projects were the best for me at this time. Finally, once I had all my general concepts in mind, I knew all my available fabrics, I knew what was on my DIY bingo board, I was able to make my final choices on which projects I was going to do. So I made a second subboard, final choices, designs, and fabrics. And I used this space for sketches of exactly what I plan to make. You can also make these little sketches right here in Milanote. Obviously, these are not, my finest and most detailed work, but they get the gist of what I was envisioning onto the paper. And, it's all in here. I know what I'm doing. I did add little descriptions to each sketch for clarity. And I also used these descriptions to link instructions for some of the projects that I needed a little more help with. Finally, I also copied and pasted my little fabric swatches into this subboard so I could decide which ones to use for each project. This was especially useful because I ended up doing a lot of patchwork, so I ended up using over 10 different fabrics total across these projects, and this was a very convenient way to remember everything I had and keep track of what went where, what I was using for which project, and deciding which combinations would work best together for the patchwork. I sort of lined them up into like different little groups to visualize how they would all look next to each other, and then made my final choices. Oh, and if you're wondering about this project with no fabric swatches, that's because I wanted to do this one as a thrift flip using 2 clothing items I already have. Yes, this did take away from the scrap busting mission of this whole video a little bit, but I was just too excited about this project, so I had to add it in. Again, thank you so much to Milanote for sponsoring this video. It was the perfect tool to organize my fabrics, any notes I had, my inspo pics, my project sketches, and just create a complete visual overview of this entire project. And when I say I'm already a user and fan, I mean it. I literally also used Milanote to plan an entire road trip vacation this spring, and it was perfect for that too. So really can't recommend it enough. You can sign up for a free account using the link in the description, and claps to Milanote for making this project possible. All right, now let's get to work. Hi. Okay, it's day 1, and we are going to start with our hair accessories. Starting with the easy, quick ones to get the energy going, get us in the spirit. Hopefully have an easy win before I attempt some more challenging projects. I did kind of get too excited last night to start this, and so I already cut out my patchwork for the scrunchie, and now we just have to sew them together. We got this. Clearly, this is more of a DIY with me than a tutorial, so you probably get the idea of what I'm doing here. We're just making a patchwork tube that will serve as the exterior of the scrunchie. Its skin, if you will. Then, when I turn it inside out, it's ready to snake an elastic through it. That would be the scrunchie's, like, bones, I guess. Unfortunately, I was really struggling to figure out the right size elastic to use. If it was too small, it couldn't hold all the fabric, but if it was too big, it would fall out of my hair. I'll be honest, I was a little stumped.
Hey y'all, so I've been messing with this for like a few hours. I put my hair in a braid to like test it out, and it's occurring to me that perhaps the solution for my hair would just be to use a ribbon instead. I think I can run a ribbon through and then I can tie it however tight I want it, and there will be like a cute little bow on here. So I'm gonna try that instead.
Somewhere in the elastic stage, I apparently sewed the long strip closed into a loop, but ignore that because we're opening it back up into a strip again to thread the ribbon through. I also sewed a little channel along the edge of the whole fabric strip so the ribbon wouldn't just be like loosely flapping around in there. It had a little more structure to give a better scrunched shape. And thank God the ribbon concept worked. So I was finally done fiddling with this project. I cannot stress enough how much more time this took than it looks like it took.
Ooh. I haven't put it in my hair yet, but I have the ribbon through, and I think it looks really, really cute. Hi. Okay, we finished the scrunchie. I am so obsessed with how it turned out, and I can't wait to show you. But that means it's time to move on to our next project. For this one, we are doing another hair accessory. I'm just doing a bandana, and because I have a multitude of these already, I'm just going to trace this onto the fabric.
I actually wanted to make a half and half dual fabric bandana, and I honestly did this in the most chaotic way possible, I think, but ultimately, at the end, I just needed to end up with 4 triangles that all align like this. And you know what? We got there, so that's all that matters. So now we're kind of just attaching all those triangles together exactly how I just had them laid out. I sewed the 2 pairs of fabric halves together down the middle to create the 2 sides of the bandana, and then I sewed those 2 sides together along 2 edges, right sides together, so when I turned it inside out, we had just a gorgeous family of triangles.
All right, the hair scarf is done, although I do think I may have made it slightly too small and I might have to add some ties. Once again, my first introductory project that I hoped would be very quick and easy to get the ball rolling ended up taking several hours. This happens to me every time. I don't know why I ever expect them to go any quicker or smoother. But now we are finally on to our next project, which is going to be a skirt with this fabric that I'm sitting out right now. I have never made a skirt before. In fact, I've never made any sort of pants or shorts, and I'm not even sure I've ever made a skirt before. So we have a lot of firsts here, but hopefully the stretchy fabric will be forgiving. And to make this skirt, I have a pair of shorts that I like to fit out that are like stretchy and fitted that I'm going to trace. And then I also have my favorite mini skirt that I'm going to trace. And that's what we'll do to get started and see how it goes from there.
I forgot to mention, in between the last project and this project, I got a rotary cutter and a cutting mat. And oh my god, why didn't anyone tell me how useful this would be? Especially for cutting curved pieces like for these shorts, absolute game changer. And they were cheap too, so if you're trying to level up your sewing, highly recommend.
Good morning, friends. It's the next day, and I have some good news and some bad news for you. The good news is, I pinned all my shorts pieces together and tried it on, and they fit perfectly. The bad news is, I have since spent way too much time trying to sew the pieces together, which should be a simple task, but my sewing machine seems to be incapable of handling a zigzag stitch on this thin, stretchy, sort of slippery little fabric. I've already spent quite some time trying to troubleshoot with no success, which means I'm gonna need to take a break before I have a meltdown. We're gonna pivot to a different project for now. I'm gonna try to start making a patchwork tank top.
Of course, to start this piece, I did what I always do, which is trace a piece I already have in the general cut and style that I want. If this shirt looks familiar from a closet clean out where I said I was getting rid of it a year ago, mind your business. And if it doesn't look familiar, that's because it has been sitting in a bag in my closet this whole time. As you can see, I traced the orange fabric to be the back of the shirt, and then I apparently cut out half of the front with this green stripe fabric. I didn't film that, but here it is. Then I traced that half to make the other half out of this floral fabric. What you don't know is that I already traced this onto the floral fabric once, but I did it on the wrong side, so the piece was backwards. Here, you see me retracing it. But, do you notice anything?
Oh my god, I'm so stupid. I traced the wrong side of the fabric again.
Yeah, I made the exact same mistake twice. So, here I am on my third attempt, finally tracing it on the correct side of the fabric, and here you can see the front piece finally coming together. Thankfully, my sewing machine was functional with this fabric, so I was able to attach all the pieces.
After, honestly, way more trial and tribulation than you would expect for this kind of thing, we have the top half of a tank top. I had to adjust the sizes of these pieces so many times and recut out this one so many times. So I think I can move on to the next step. I'm a little nervous, guys. I don't want to put in all this work and then it doesn't even fit me how I want it to, but I'm worried I'm going to make it worse if I keep messing with it. So I'm just going to go to the next step and we'll see. It's day 3. It's very dark because it's quite stormy and rainy outside, so just let it be like a cozy ambiance, you know? Anyway, it may look like I have made no progress since yesterday. However, I have actually done a lot on the inside and with putting the bottom tier together. I got all my patches, they're all hemmed. The hems are all zigzag stitched so they don't fall apart in the wash because that is a problem I frequently have with my DIY projects, so I'm trying to improve as a person. I also added some darts at the chest. So now all I have to do is attach this tier to the bottom and then hem all the edges of the neckline and the armholes, which I think I want to do with bias binding. I've never done that before. I'm a little nervous. However, I just think it would be the best choice for this garment, although I might not document it because it might just be me trying and failing over and over and over again. For now, let's attach these pieces together and then we'll see where the next step leads. Good morning, everyone. It's day 4. I feel like both me and my setup here have become increasingly disheveled throughout the week, and I'm just choosing to accept that. I'm wearing pajamas. So far today, I have successfully attached some straps to my hair scarf. Not straps, what are these? Ties. And I have also made some bias tape to use on this tank top. So now I'm gonna try to attach it. Honestly, very proud of myself for even making it. I've never done that before. And then I will finally be ready, perhaps, to return to the skirt of my nightmares. Anyway, time to plug into my favorite podcast in the world, the Bechtelcast, and get to sewing.
I decided to do single fold bias tape around the neckline and armholes to have the finishing completely hidden on the inside but still super stable and clean, and I will spare you the details because it was so fiddly and took forever, and ultimately the outside of the top will look pretty much the same to you. But it did create a beautiful interior finish that I will show you at the end. I'll also link some videos in the description that I used to learn how to make bias tape and how to attach it on the single fold without being visible, just in case any of you is actually trying to make a project from this video and not just watching for the entertainment value of seeing me struggle.
We're back in business, baby. The squirt is happening. Also, good morning. It's another new day. This time, my hair is wet. I'm looking even less presentable than yesterday. I finished my tank top yesterday. I'm so proud of it. It's the most professional looking finishing I've ever done on anything. Okay, let's get back to work on this skirt.
Truly cannot explain to you why my sewing machine was unable to sew this fabric earlier, but now it worked fine. What can I say? She works in mysterious ways. But finally, I was able to sew the shorts together and cut out the skirt and sew that too. Finally, I just had to make a waistband, which I also used to attach the shorts and skirt together. So the best way I can describe this is that I just sort of made almost like one giant double fold bias tape that encased the edges of the skirt and the shorts. This required a lot of ironing to get everything to lay correctly, but this actually worked incredibly well for me. I had never made a waistband before, but this actually turned out perfectly. That said, I did sew the skirt on backwards, so I guess the universe was trying to humble me.
Hi friends, it's been a few days. I've recovered from my struggles and frustration on my previous projects, and it's time to do one last project. This one is actually not using scrap fabric from this box, which may defeat the purpose of the video slightly, but I want to focus on making and DIYing stuff I'm actually going to wear and use. And I have this skirt, which I talked about in a recent video, saying that it was sort of a thrift regret because it's red and black with no other colors, and that's just not a color scheme I love. However, I love everything else about this skirt, and I don't want to get rid of it, but I thought it could benefit from possibly adding a patch of another fabric, like this blue and green plaid. These are some pajama pants I thrifted a while ago, and I honestly got them because I thought the fabric was so nice. As it turns out, they are kind of just too long to be functional for me, so I think I'm going to turn the top half of these into pajama shorts and then use the legs to make like a big patch to go on this skirt. Hopefully you see the vision in my sketch.
This actually worked out shockingly well in that the height I needed for the patch I was envisioning was pretty much exactly the length I would need to cut off the pants anyway to make shorts. Perhaps the universe wanted me to win after all. Once I cut the pant legs off, I just seam ripped them both open and then sewed them together to create this big swath of fabric, which I then cut into my arch shape. Then off camera, I ironed over all the edges of the arched patch so the raw hems would be tucked underneath the shape, so I could just sew it all down with a top stitch and have it be clean. After ironing, I pinned the arch down, trying to align it as flatly and closely with the skirt fabric under it as possible. And this is actually the side of the skirt. The patch isn't going in the center, but I just laid it out like this to pin it. Then the next morning, I just had to sew it down. Oh, and also I hemmed the shorts. And with that, all the projects were done. And honestly, these are some of my proudest DIYs to date. I feel like I really put in the extra effort that I normally kind of shirk. I ironed everything, I finished everything cleanly and nicely so it won't just look cute for the video, but also hold up over time. And I am so excited to show them to you. So, here they are. First up, this absolutely incredible scrunchie. I am utterly obsessed with this. It just feels so artistic, so whimsical. It is truly so big that it's almost like a sculptural piece on my head. And I love that I was able to take this oversized, ruffly scrunchie trend and truly make it my own with DIY and patchwork and the added ribbon. I just love it so much. And also it's kind of giving Triceratops, which makes me feel very powerful. Of course, the dual fabric bandana is also adorable and a more understated everyday piece. I wear hair bandanas so often in the summer especially, so you know I have already been getting wear out of this. I'm actually literally wearing it right now as I record this voiceover. Plus, look how much styling versatility we have. There's so many options, especially with the little ties. So cute. That said, if making ties intimidates you, you can definitely just make the triangles a little bigger and then you wouldn't need them, which makes this an extremely beginner-friendly project. Next up are skort, which looks pretty simple, but oh my god, the built-in shorts are an absolute game changer for practicality. And honestly, I was shocked at how well they came together with no pattern and never having made pants before. And because we had to make shorts and make a skirt for this one, we get to check off 2 DIY bingo squares in one, which is pretty thrilling. Some might say that's cheating, but I think it counts. If you love skirts as much as me and struggle to find them, especially shopping secondhand, you might want to consider giving DIY a try. This was unexpectedly easy once my sewing machine was actually functional. Next, my pride and joy of this entire video, this patchwork tank top. I love this top so much. I think it's so cute and so me, and it's made of super comfy cotton fabrics with a nice comfy fit. Everything about it is kind of perfect, but honestly, the thing I am the most pleased with is this finishing. Even from the outside, I feel like you can tell that the edges are stable and thick and just have a sturdier, less flimsy construction. But on the inside, I mean, look at this. She's gorgeous. Can you believe I did that? Considering this is what the insides of my projects usually look like, I can hardly believe it. It's certainly still not perfect, but I'm just so proud of how much effort I put in and how nicely it turned out for my first time ever using bias tape. I'm gonna be riding the high of this accomplishment for weeks. And finally, this plaid skirt. I love how this turned out so much. It's basically exactly what I envisioned, and it makes the skirt so much more me, so much more versatile in my wardrobe, and just a lot more interesting. I'm also glad I was able to sew this section on without cutting out or removing any of the original skirt, so in theory this is removable if my style ever changes and I want to convert it back. Honestly though, that's pretty hard to imagine. I love this design, I love these colors, and I love how I executed it, so I am super happy with this. Oh, and I also got some new shorts out of this. I kind of forgot to write a voiceover for these, but look, cute. Pajama shorts. You could definitely also wear them as real shorts. Do the whole like trendy plaid boxer short thing. These are just sort of like a side effect of this project, but maybe I'll get more use out of them than I expect. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I would love to hear your favorite project from this video in the comments. And I heard if you do leave a comment, watch another video, like something else from my extensive DIY and thrift flips playlist. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. And subscribe. You will never accidentally cut out a piece for your sewing project backwards. Not even once, and especially not twice in a row.